So, all right, we'll start the class. So, we were discussing about Rankine cycles, and we have seen a basic Rankine cycle and Rankine cycle with superheat in the previous class. And then we have discussed that what are the different ways to increase the efficiency of a Rankine cycle. So, the ways were to either to increase the boiler pressure, so means increase the height of this line so that the area enclosed is increased, or to reduce the condenser pressure, or to use superheating. And then we had discussed that there are two other options. One is known as reheating and second is known as regeneration. So the cycles with reheating is known as reheat Rankine cycle, and with regeneration is known as regeneration Rankine cycle. So we will study those two cycles today. Okay. Starting with reheat Rankine cycle. So for reheat Rankine cycle, the concept is very simple. What we have is for the first part of the cycle is similar to simple Rankine cycle. Okay, so from 1 to 2, you have increase in pressure, which is the compression process in the pump. So then from 2 to 3 is the heat addition in the boiler. Okay, so 2 to 2 dash in the economizer, 2 dash to 2 double dash in the actual boiler, and 2 double dash to 3 in the superheater. But for studying the cycles, we can consider that the entire process from 2 to 3 is the heat addition in the boiler. Okay, so this is the high temperature heat addition. Then we have a expansion process in the turbine, similar to what we had in the Rankine cycle. Okay, but in this case, the expansion does not go to the condenser pressure, but stops somewhere in between. So the expansion is from 3 to 4, and it stops at some intermediate pressure. Say the high pressure is 10 megapascal and the low pressure is 10 kilopascal. So the first turbine may go from 10 megapascal to say 800 kilopascal. Okay, I am just giving some random values, some random but realistic values. So after that, again the steam is passed through the superheater. Okay, or in this case, this is known as the reheater. Okay, because uh, we are again heating the steam, so the term reheat is used. So which is this is like a superheater only, means this is also like a heat exchanger, but it heats the fluid at a lower pressure. Okay, so again the temperature of the fluid rises. Fluid in this case is the gas, means is the vapor. So again the temperature of the vapor rises to a high temperature, and after that it is again passed through a turbine, second turbine, and the second turbine brings this vapor to the condenser pressure. Then in the condenser, the condensation occurs from 6 to 1. So the only change that has occurred as compared to normal Rankine cycle is that you have an additional reheating process and an additional expansion in the turbine. Okay, so these two processes are added to the cycle, and immediately from the cycle you can see that the area inside the cycle has increased. Area inside the cycle has increased means what? Uh, in terms of heat transfer or work output, can somebody say what does it mean if the area inside the cycle increases?
Sir, heat transfer, like total heat is increased.
Total heat transfer is increased to this, means during the entire process, means entire cycle. So because during the entire cycle the heat transfer is equal to the work output, net work output, the net work output has also increased per unit mass. Okay, so the net specific work output means per unit mass. So the net specific work output increases if we use a reheating process. Okay, this is one direct advantage. In general, the efficiency also increases because the second heat addition occurs at high temperature. Average temperature increases. Average temperature of heat addition increases. Okay, so In general, the efficiency also increases by 3 to 4%. Okay. And calculation of the efficiency is very simple. So the efficiency is equal to the net work output. So in this case, what is the net work output? H3 minus H4 is the work output from the first turbine, plus H5 minus H6 is the work output from the second turbine, minus H2 minus H1 is the work input to the pump. So we are subtracting that. So this is the net work output in the numerator, and we divide this by the heat addition at high temperature. So this is equal to H3 minus H2 plus H5 minus H4. Okay, we have two heat addition processes, H3 minus H2 and H5 minus H4. So this gives us the net thermal efficiency of the cycle. Okay. So like this we can calculate, and you should be able to calculate problems. I am not going to go to any problems for this case. Okay, you should be able to solve any of the problems. And again, you have to just follow step by step computation method. So we can start with point 1. Point 1 generally pressure is given and quality is 0. So based on that we can find what is the enthalpy. Then from the pump work input we can find out what is the enthalpy of point 2. Okay. Point 2 enthalpy H2 is equal to H1 plus V1 into P2 minus P1. We have already seen that in our previous problem. Then enthalpy at point 3 is found because the temperature and pressure both are generally given. Okay. How do we find the enthalpy at point 4? One minute.
The entropy will remain same.
Yes. So the entropy will remain same, and we need to know the what is the pressure here. Okay, what is the reheating pressure? So if the reheater pressure is has to be given, and entropy will remain same. So from these two conditions, we will find what is the either the quality or the temperature at this point. If this point comes within the two-phase region, we will find the quality. If it is outside the two-phase region, we will find what is the temperature from the superheating table. Then 0.5, typically the temperature is kept same at 0.5, same as that at 0.3. Okay, the maximum temperature in the cycle is governed by the turbine blade materials. So for fully using the turbine blade material capacity, we keep the maximum temperature in the reheating part also equal to the maximum temperature in the superheater part, so that the inlet temperature to the second turbine also is same as the inlet temperature to the first turbine. Okay, so this temperature will be known and pressure will be known, so we can find the enthalpy at this point from the superheated table, and again based on equating the entropy, we will find what is the enthalpy at 0.6. Okay, so then all the points enthalpies are known, and you can calculate the net work output and the efficiency, heat addition, things like that. So you should be able to solve any problem for a reheat cycle. It's very simple to solve. So if we want to draw the diagram, mechanical diagram of all the equipment, okay, we can draw schematically like this. So from 1 to 2. So I will keep, so you have the cycle open on the right hand side. Okay, you can correlate it with this mechanical diagram. So from 1 to 2 is the pump compression process. So from 2 to 3, the fluid passes through the boiler. Okay, so there is heat addition in the boiler. Then from 3 to 4 is the expansion in the high pressure turbine. This is known as the high pressure turbine because it deals with higher pressure, relatively higher pressure as compared to the second turbine. Okay. So from 3 to 4 is the expansion in the high pressure turbine. So instead of going from 4 to the condenser, the steam at point 4 is brought back to the boiler. Okay, it is brought back to the boiler, and here it is again heated. So we are schematically showing a coil here to show that there is a heat exchanger here. Okay, so again it is heated and it goes back to state 5. Okay, state 5, which is at high temperature. The pressure remains same, it's constant pressure heat addition, but the temperature increases. So from 5 to 6 is the expansion in the low pressure turbine. And then from 6 it is passed at state 6 to the condenser for the condensation to occur. Okay. The state 6 may be within the two-phase region or it may be outside in the superheated region. Typically it will be within the two-phase region, because if it is within the superheated region you lose certain amount of efficiency, because the inlet to the condenser occurs at a higher temperature as compared to if it were at the two-phase region. Okay, so average temperature of heat rejection increases, so efficiency slightly decreases. So you want the condensation process to start within the two-phase region, not in the superheated region. Okay. So it improves efficiency by 4 to 5%, and it is not practical to have more than 2 reheat stages. Okay, each reheat stage will add complexity and also add initial cost and running cost. Each turbine and each reheater is a very large device. It looks very simple in this diagram, but actually it contains large number of tubes, coiled tubes within the furnace, okay, within the extrusion furnace. If you go back to your diagram that we have studied in the initial class, you will see the reheater, and somewhere it might be there. Or if you see the video, okay, so this region, okay, this will increase the size. So these coils that are shown here, blue colored coils that are shown here, is for the this is the economizer. The next lines, okay, this red color lines is for the reheater. 21 should be reheater, yes. 21 is the reheater. So this red color lines that are shown here, these coils that are shown here, is for the reheating purpose, and there are actually thousands of tubes. Okay, this is a very large device and it increases the cost of the equipment or the capital cost of the entire equipment. Okay. So we do not have typically more than 2 reheat stages. Addition of reheat stages will increase the efficiency, but if you keep on increasing the reheat stages, it will increase the cost. That is one point. Second point is that the turbine exhaust will occur at the superheated state. Okay, if I have another one, it will go towards more superheated state. And if it goes to superheated state, the efficiency is reduced because the average temperature of heat rejection is increased. Okay, and if the average temperature of heat rejection increases, we know that efficiency is given by 1 minus average temperature of heat rejection by average temperature of heat addition. Okay, so if the average temperature of heat rejection increases, the efficiency is lower. So you don't want to have too many reheat stages, okay, based on cost and efficiency. So generally 1 to 2 reheat stages are used. So next we will move on to the other type of cycle, which is known as regenerative Rankine cycle. Any questions on the reheat Rankine cycle? No questions. So we will move on to the regenerative, the type of cycle which is known as the regenerative Rankine cycle. Okay. So first let me show the TS diagram, then we will come to the component diagram. Okay. So in regenerative Rankine cycle, the main idea is that to reduce the heat addition in the boiler. Okay. How this is done? How the heat addition in the boiler is reduced? So instead of passing the compressed water from state 2 directly to the boiler, it is heated up to a certain extent by taking out some amount of steam from the turbine itself. Okay. So internally there is a heat exchange process. There is no external heat addition. You take some steam from the turbine and it is mixed with the condensate. The water after this condensation process is known as condensate. So it is mixed with the condensate to increase its temperature from 2 to 3. Okay. Once it is brought to temperature 3, then it is passed to a second pump and to the boiler. So the net effect is that heat addition in the boiler is reduced. Okay. So I will now go through the entire cycle step by step. So what we have is 1 to 2, which is the compression process in the pump. Okay. But in this case, the compression process in the pump does not take it to the boiler pressure, but it takes to some intermediate pressure, which is known as regeneration pressure or feed water pressure. Okay. What is feed water heater pressure? I will come to what is a feed water heater later on, but let us call this pressure as feed water heater pressure. Point 2. Okay. It is some intermediate pressure. If the condenser pressure is 10 kilopascal and the say boiler pressure is 10 megapascal, the feed water heater pressure may be 400 kilopascal or 500 kilopascal. Okay. Some intermediate pressure. So this is now at state 2. Okay. Now what is done is that you bring so if the expansion in the turbine goes as usual, but while the expansion is occurring at a certain point, okay, at a certain intermediate point from the turbine, you extract some amount of steam, very small amount of steam. Okay, the rest of the steam goes through the normal expansion in the turbine, but a small amount of steam is extracted and it is brought to a mixing chamber like this. Okay, this steam is brought to a mixing chamber. So now in the mixing chamber, you have steam at state 6, which is at high enthalpy, and you also bring the water at state 2 to the mixing chamber. Okay, you also bring the water at state 2 to the mixing chamber. The pressure of state 6 fluid and state 2 fluid are same. Okay, they are at the same pressure. So the steam is extracted from the turbine at the feed water heater pressure. Okay, say at 500 kilopascal. So they can be mixed together, and after mixing they come to some intermediate state, which is state 3. Okay, with some intermediate enthalpy. So what has happened is that after mixing, the enthalpy of this steam at state 6 has reduced to state 3, while the enthalpy of the liquid at state 2 has increased to state 3. Okay, so we come to state 3, and then the mixture is sent to a second pump. The second pump pumps it from the intermediate pressure to the high boiler pressure, and then the liquid water is sent to the boiler for heat addition from external heat source, which is the coal-fired flue gases that are generated. Okay. So in doing this, what we have done is that we have reduced the heat addition process from the external heat source to the region from 4 to 5 instead of from the region from 2 to 5. Okay. So the external heat addition is reduced, and although the work output is also reduced, we will come to that. The work output is also reduced. The net efficiency is increased. Okay. For this type of cycle. So let us look at the component diagram. Okay, this is slightly more complex as compared to the previous cycles that we have studied. So you have to understand this fully. Okay, what is happening. I will keep the cycle open on this side. So from 1 to 2, you are pumping the fluid. Okay, from 1 to 2, you are pumping the fluid to some intermediate pressure, which we are going to call as the feed water heater pressure. Okay, so what is this feed water heater? It is nothing but the mixing chamber where the mixing of the steam from the turbine and the condensate from the condenser is done. Okay, the mixing occurs in this feed water heater. Why is it called as feed water heater? Because it heats the feed water. So what is feed water? Feed water is the water that is supplied to the boiler. Okay, the water that is supplied to the boiler is known as feed water. So because we are heating that water from 2 to 3, okay, so we are heating the water from 2 to 3, it is known as this device is known as the feed water heater. Okay, and the pressure that is present in this feed water heater is known as feed water heater pressure. Okay, so feed water heaters need not be only like mixing chambers, as we will see in the next classes. There can be other types of feed water heaters like normal heat exchangers, where the two fluid streams do not mix. Okay, one of the fluids pass through pipes or tubes, and the other fluid passes over the tubes. So feed water heater can be like a mixing chamber as shown here, or it can be like a shell and tube heat exchanger. Okay, it can be of two types. Either it can be a shell and tube heat exchanger or a mixing chamber. So depending on this, we will have different types of regeneration cycles, which we will study in the next class. Now, after the mixing in the feed water heater, okay, so how the mixing occurs? So the water at stage 2 is passed through the feed water heater. It is at the intermediate pressure of the feed water heater. Okay. Now, along the turbine expansion at a pressure, so what is happening in the turbine? The pressure gets reduced from 5, where we have very high pressure, to 7, where the pressure is very low. The pressure gets reduced in the turbine. So at some point, the pressure is equal to the feed water heater pressure. At that point, you extract some amount of steam from the turbine. Okay, directly you extract some amount of steam from the turbine, and this steam is brought to the mixing chamber or the feed water heater. So this mixes with the cold water, and ultimately the mixture temperature goes to state 3. Okay, so the temperature becomes high, so the temperature of 2 is increased. Why? Because the steam at state 6 loses its latent heat, and by losing its latent heat, it increases the temperature of the rest of the fluid. Okay, so ultimately the mixture comes out at state 3. The entire mixture means it has both the components, the part that is brought from the turbine as well as the part which is coming from the condenser. So the intermixture comes to state 3 and is pumped to state 4. Okay, so state 4 is at the boiler pressure, and then it is passed through the boiler. So the normal boiling process occurs in the boiler, boiling and superheating, and from 5 it is passed again through the turbine, and the rest of the expansion in the turbine occurs, and part of the steam is extracted from the turbine, rest of the steam goes through the condenser like a normal Rankine cycle, and undergoes condensation and goes to the pump. Okay, so the fraction of steam that is brought from the turbine to the feed water heater can be denoted by Y, and the fraction of steam that is passed to the condenser can then be denoted as 1 minus Y. And typically the value of Y is very small. Okay, so it can be 0.1, 0.15 like that. Can somebody say why the value of Y is very small, or why the Y value, or how the Y value will be determined based on the cycle? You can see the cycle here also, yeah, and the component diagram here. So how will the value of Y be determined? So this is the component diagram, this is the cycle. Okay. And why is the value of Y very small? Yes.
So maybe because like pump 2 has to pump the mixture, so we would like to have less of it. whereas pump 1 would have only liquid to pump.
Yes, so we will send liquid to pump. So state 3 is fixed. Okay, state 3 is the saturated liquid state. Saturated liquid state means on this line, okay, at the feed water pressure. So it is the saturated liquid state at the feed water heater pressure. So maybe at 500 kilopascal, it is the saturated liquid. So its state is fixed. Okay, that is true, correct. Then after that, how will you find the value of phi, and why will the value of phi be very small?
So like that's what I meant, like, so why in the condenser region we have like proper condensation happening and we would have the steam converted to water. But
Yes.
when we are taking a vibe direct to the feed water heater, there you said we only have like water kind of thing. So if more steam is there, maybe it won't convert properly into it won't convert fully into liquid, which would be a problem there. So maybe that's why we are having very less steam going to feed water.
Yes, but how do you calculate that value? Means we cannot take arbitrary value, right? So how do we calculate the value of phi? Arbitrarily, I cannot say that I will take 10% steam from here or 15% steam. I have to take a certain amount so that this end point 3 from the feed water heater is always at the saturated liquid condition. Okay. So how do we determine the value of phi so that this point 3 is always at the saturated liquid condition? Your point is correct that if we take more steam, some of the steam will still remain, okay, as steam, and we will not be able to pump it. So we need less amount. But how do we exact amount? How is it determined? That this amount of steam, if we take too less amount, what will happen? We cannot heat the water at point 2 through water means to point 3. It will be at some intermediate point. Okay. So we also have to bring the water at point 2 to the saturated liquid at point 3. Okay. So that state also has to increase. So we need to know what is the exact amount of energy required to increase the water temperature from 2 to 3. Okay. So now can you say how I will be determined? So we have to do an energy balance for the feed water heater. Okay. This is a normal mixing process. So Y into H6 minus H3. So the steam at energy H6, it goes from energy H6 to H3. Okay. So the the energy lost by this steam is Y into H6 minus H3. Okay. What is the amount of or fraction of water which is going from the other side at point 2? What is the fraction of water? So the fraction of water which passes through the condenser is 1 minus Y. Okay. Because total amount we can consider as 1. So Y is the fraction which goes directly from the turbine, and 1 minus Y comes through the condenser. Okay. So 1 minus Y into H3 minus H2 is the amount of heat addition that is required to bring the feed water from state 2 to state 3. Okay. So these two energies need to be equal. So Y into H6 minus H3 should be equal to 1 minus Y H3 minus H2. Okay. So by doing this energy balance in the feed water heater, we get what is the value of Y. So is it clear to everyone? Y into H6 minus H3. Okay. So it is written here. Y should be calculated based on the energy balance of the feed water heater. I will show it here also. H6 minus H3 into Y, H6 minus H3 into Y is the energy lost by the steam, and this is equal to the energy gained by the condensate water. So which is H3 minus H2 into 1 minus Y. So these two should be equal. So from this energy balance, we can find that what is the value of Y, because H6, H2 and H3 will be known to us. So now can you say why the fraction of Y should be very small and 1 minus Y will be large? Or why the value of Y is typically very small? From this energy balance, what do you think? What is the energy lost by the steam at 0.6, H6 minus H3? This was steam at a certain condition. Now it has become liquid water. So the energy that is being lost by this is equal to the latent heat. Okay. And typically, what is the amount of latent heat? Latent heat amounts are much larger as compared to sensible heat. Is it correct?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the steam is losing huge amount of heat. Okay. Although it is at the same temperature, because it is going from mostly vapor to fully liquid state. So it is losing huge amount of heat. Okay. On the other hand, the condensate water, which was at state 2, it is only undergoing sensible heating. It is not boiling, right? It is undergoing sensible heating. So its sensible energy is increasing. So the amount of heat addition depends on the Cp value, and because it is undergoing sensible heating, it needs much less amount of energy for the same mass. Okay. So as a result, per unit mass, H3 minus H2 will be much less as compared to H6 minus H3. Okay. H3 minus H2 will be much less as compared to H6 minus H3. So for equal amount of energy, the fraction of steam that is required, or that will undergo the process from H6 minus H3, will need to be much smaller as compared to the fraction of liquid which undergoes heating from 2 to 3, because this part is only sensible heating. Okay. So because H6 minus H3 is very large, this Y is very small. On the other hand, because H3 minus H2 is very small, 1 minus Y is quite large. Okay. So this you can directly see from the energy balance itself. Okay. Because one part undergoes phase change, it releases latent heat, and as a result the amount that is required, amount of steam that is required, is much smaller. Okay. So you only need to extract say 10 to 15% of steam from the turbine, and rest 85 to 90% of steam is passed through the condenser, and it undergoes condensation, normal condensation process, and then increase of pressure, and then heating in the feed water heater. Okay. Is it clear now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So typically we will have more than one feed water heaters. Each of them will extract small amount of steam. Okay, we will see in the next class that there can be 4, 5, 6 feed water heaters also. Each of them will extract small amount of steam and will increase the condensate temperature to a slightly higher temperature. Again, the next feed water heater will increase the temperature to higher temperature. So ultimately, what is the net effect? Net effect is that the entry point to the boiler, okay, the entry temperature to the boiler is increased. Instead of 0.2, it has gone to 0.4. Okay. As a result, the heat addition in the boiler has reduced. And because the external heat addition is only the heat addition in the boiler, the external heat addition or heat addition from the external source is reduced and the efficiency is increased. Okay. So, as I have already stated, Y should be calculated based on energy balance of the feed water heater, H6 minus H3 into Y is equal to H3 minus H2 into 1 minus Y. Another way of looking at it is that energy remains conserved. Okay. So the total energy that comes to the feed water heater is H6 into Y. So amount of steam coming to the feed water heater is Y. So Y into the steam comes at energy H6. Okay, Y into H6. And the second source of energy is the liquid which comes at state 2. Okay. So plus H2 into 1 minus Y. So second source is H2 into 1 minus Y. So this is the total amount of energy which comes into the feed water heater. Okay. And what is the energy that goes out from the feed water heater? Total mass flow rate is Y plus 1 minus Y, which is equal to 1. So 1 into H3. H3 is the state of the steam at the exit. Okay, so let me keep this diagram open. So total amount of energy which comes into the feed water heater is Y into H6 plus 1 minus Y into H2, and the energy that goes out of the feed water heater is 1 into H3. Okay, so these two should be equal. So as a result, H6 into Y plus H2 minus into 1 minus Y is equal to H3. Okay. Both the two equations are similar. Okay, you can just rearranging the terms will give you one equation or the other equation. Both are based on the energy balance. So like this, we can find what is the value of Y. Okay. Any questions on this regenerative cycle? Because this is slightly more tricky as compared to the previous cycles. Okay. So let us note a few points. In a regenerative Rankine cycle, we extract a part of the steam from the turbine to heat the feed water. Okay, we have already discussed. Efficiency is increased. That also we have discussed. Another side effect, positive side effect of this is that because you are extracting certain amount of steam from the turbine for the low pressure stages. So turbine has multiple stages, right? It is not a single device. It has multiple stages. And we know that for the low pressure stages, the volume of steam is very high. Why is the volume very high? Because the pressure is very low. Okay. At low pressure, the specific volume is increased. So if the volume is very high, for the specific volume is very high, for the same mass flow rate, the total volume would have been very high. Okay. And as a result, you need very large cross-sectional area for the turbines. And what is the negative effect of having very large cross-sectional area of the turbine? Can anyone say? We have discussed in the first one or two classes. If the turbines have very large cross-sectional area for the flow to occur, what is the disadvantage? Or the flow area of the turbines is increased. What is the disadvantage? Can we see some turbine picture? You have to answer more. Okay.
So is it pressure loss?
Radial stress.
Pressure
Radial stress. So it is right. Centrifugal stress will increase. Radial stress. Why will it increase? Because if the cross-sectional area is more, the blade length will increase. Length of the blades will increase to accommodate higher cross-sectional area. As we can see, this first stage is the high pressure stage, and the subsequent stages are for lower and lower pressure. So towards the end, you can see that the length of the blades has become very large. Okay. I don't have any more diagram. This is also not very clear, but you can see that length of the blades is increasing. Okay. So this is very good picture. So we can see here. So first stages are very small blades. So you can see large number of stages. Okay. So last stages have very long blades. So all of them are rotating at the same speed because all of them are mounted on the same shaft. So because the longer blades are also rotating at the same speed, they have larger velocity. Okay, means larger velocity at the tip, and because the tip velocity is larger, the stresses will be higher. Okay, or you can just directly calculate based on the angular velocity and the radius. This radial stresses will be higher, centrifugal stresses will be higher, and this causes problem. Okay, so as a result, we want to So what was the way to mitigate this? Does anyone remember? How was this tackled in a typical steam turbine? We had discussed this. Initially, we will discuss towards the end of the course also, but we had discussed this initially also. How to tackle the large volume of steam. So what is done is that for the low pressure stages, instead of a single turbine, we have two turbines. We divide the flow into two separate turbines. Okay. So half of the flow goes to one turbine, half of it goes to the other turbine. So the mass flow rate is reduced by half for each of the turbine. Okay. So each of the turbine deals with half of the volume flow rate. So this is how the low pressure turbine stages were mitigating the or was still managing to accommodate the higher specific volume of steam. Okay, so let us come back to our regeneration cycle. So one side effect, positive side effect of this extracting the steam is that the volume flow rate of the steam through the lower pressure stages is reduced by the amount Y. Okay, so it is slightly reduced. As a result, it leads to less amount of volume which flows through the final stages of the turbine. Okay, so the cross sectional area of the final stages of the turbine can be slightly reduced, which can reduce the stresses in the turbine. Okay, this is one positive side effect. One negative side effect of the regeneration cycle is that the positive side, the main positive effect was that to increase the efficiency. Okay, but one negative effect is that the net specific work output is reduced. Okay, per unit mass flow rate, the work output is reduced. So instead of the entire amount of steam going from state 5 to state 7, we are reducing the amount of steam which goes from state 6 to 7. Okay, so from 5 to 6, the entire amount of steam is undergoing expansion and generating work, but from 6 to 7, less amount of work is generated. Okay, instead of the entire amount of work being generated, less amount of work is generated. So as a result, the net work output is lower. The net work output from the cycle is lower per unit mass flow rate. To account for this, we need to increase the mass flow rate of the steam through the entire cycle. Okay, but the efficiency is increased because although the net work output is lower, the net heat addition is even lower. Okay, so ultimately the efficiency is increased. And as we have discussed, multiple feed water heaters are generally used so that we can push the inlet temperature to the boiler to a very high temperature so that very less amount of heat addition is required in the boiler. Okay. So I will just go through this maths part a little bit. Okay, and then we will try to solve a problem. Okay. So the net work done can be calculated in this case as the work output from the turbine. What is the work output from the turbine? H5 minus H6 into mass flow rate, which is 1 in this part. Okay, H5 minus H6 into 1 per unit mass flow rate of the entire cycle. Okay. Then from H6 to H7, you have mass flow rate equal to 1 minus Y. So plus 1 minus Y into H6 to H7. So these two terms together give the work output from the turbine. Okay. What is the work input required to the pump? So the first pump, the work input is 1 minus Y. This is the mass flow rate 1 minus Y into H2 minus H1. For the second pump handles the entire fluid. Okay. So 1 into H4 minus H3. So this is the net work output from the cycle. What is the heat addition? H5 minus H4. So we get the efficiency of the regenerative cycle as H5 minus H6 into plus 1 minus Y into H6 minus H7 minus 1 minus Y H2 minus H1 minus H4 minus H3, the whole divided by H5 minus H4. Okay. So only thing that is required for this calculation is the value of Y. All the other enthalpy values can be directly calculated. So calculate the value of Y. We need to use the energy balance for the feed water heater as we have already discussed. And the energy balance will give us the value of Y. Then we can solve for the efficiency. So we will solve a problem today to see actually how to calculate this, okay, so that it is more clear to us, because this is slightly tricky, slightly confusing, how to go through all the steps and how to calculate step by step the enthalpy values and the value of fraction y and the efficiency. All these things we will see through an example problem. Any questions on this part? Regenerative cycle or reheat cycle? So if you remember the previous class, please always study the previous class notes before the next classes. Okay. If you remember the previous class, I will open this. We have defined something which is known as mean temperature of heat addition. Okay. How was it defined? It is the average temperature of heat addition. So H3 minus H2 by S3 minus S2. Okay. So mean temperature of heat addition depends on what is the average temperature going from 2 to this point, then the temperature in the means in the boiler and the temperature in the superheater. Okay. And based on this, we have found that the efficiency of the Rankine cycle can be written as 1 minus TL by Tm, where TL is the mean temperature of heat rejection, which is the condenser temperature, and Tm is the mean temperature of heat addition. So if we can increase the mean temperature of heat addition, this term will be lower and the efficiency will increase. Okay. So we have put in this form because this is similar to the equation for Carnot cycle. Okay. So our aim was to increase somehow the mean temperature of heat addition or lower the mean temperature of heat rejection. And we have seen that we can increase the mean temperature of heat addition by increasing the boiler pressure, okay, or by lowering, or we can decrease TL by lowering the condenser pressure. Another way of increasing Tm was to increase the superheating, okay, but that is limited by the material of the turbine blades. So now what we have seen today in regenerative cycle is that we are changing this process inlet temperature from 0.2 to some higher temperature 0.4, okay. So we are increasing the temperature at the inlet from 2 to some higher temperature 4. So what it means in terms of mean temperature of heat addition? So because we are removing the lower temperature heat addition, this low temperature heat addition we are removing, the mean temperature of heat addition increases. Okay. So the main problem in reducing the efficiency of the Rankine cycle was that we had a part of the process which was at low temperature. So this was decreasing the mean temperature of heat addition. If we can remove the low temperature heat addition as much as possible, we can significantly increase the efficiency because the mean temperature of heat addition increases. So by adding more and more feed water heaters, we can remove this part as much as possible. So the heat addition occurs at a very high temperature in the steam generator. So the mean temperature of heat addition increases and the efficiency increases. Okay, that is how we can also explain the rise in efficiency in terms of mean temperature of heat addition for a regenerative process. Is it clear what I have tried to explain here? Or is there any doubt, or feel free to ask me. Okay. So don't worry whether like more discussion should be there in the classes.
Yes, it's clear.
So for the others, so if anyone has any
Yes.
question, you can ask, because otherwise it will be too difficult to understand later on. So actually these cycles are very simple. The problems for these cycles are very simple to solve. The only difficult part is that you have to know how to draw the TS diagram. Okay, this is the TS diagram. If you know how to draw the TS diagram correctly, you should be able to solve any problem, because it is just then step by step going through each of these tests and finding the enthalpy values, okay, as we will see today while solving the problem. So what we are going to do is we are going to solve a problem for this regenerative Rankine cycle. Okay, so we will take a short break here, 5 minutes break, and after this we will we will solve a problem on this regenerative Rankine cycle. Okay. So meanwhile, within the break, I will also scan some more pages. Yes, we will continue after the problem also. So we'll continue our discussion. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So let us try to take a look at a problem. Okay. So the problem states that, so I will reduce this size. We have a ideal regenerative Rankine cycle with a particular set of data. Okay. Ideal means there are no losses in the turbine or the pump. So their isentropic efficiency is 100% and there are no pressure losses also. Okay. Like what we have studied here. If there was losses, we also have to account for the losses, and we have studied in the previous class how to do that in terms of the isentropic efficiency. Okay. So in this case, the isentropic efficiencies are 100%. So the turbine inlet state is given as 6 MPa 450 degrees centigrade. Okay. So this point is 6 MPa. I will increase the size again. Just 6 MPa 450 degrees centigrade. Condenser pressure is given as 20 kPa. Okay. 20 kPa for the condenser pressure. The boiler pressure is fixed then 6 MPa. Okay. The entire boiler pressure is 6 MPa because the turbine inlet state is 6 MPa. And the condenser pressure is 20 kPa. We have a feed water heater with pressure equal to 0.4 MPa. So here the pressure is equal to 0.4 MPa, 400 kPa. Okay. It's an open type of feed water heater. We will discuss open and closed feed water heaters in the next class. Open feed water heaters are heaters that we have seen today. Okay, in today's class. So feed water heater where direct mixing occurs. Closed feed water heaters are heaters where there is no direct mixing. It is a shell and tube type of heat exchanger. Okay. So we have only considered open feed water heater today. So we have an open feed water heater with pressure 0.4 MPa. Exit state from the feed water heater is also given as saturated liquid. Okay. So the state 3 is saturated liquid. Okay. We will see in the next class that it need not be always saturated liquid. It can be subcooled liquid also, means we can even lower the temperature slightly after this. Okay. So it can be in some cases it can be subcooled liquid also, but for this problem it is saturated liquid state 3. Okay. So we have to show the cycle on a TS diagram and find out the net work output per unit mass flow rate of steam and the efficiency of the cycle. Okay. So the same thing what we have discussed, but now in numerical form we have to solve. So before solving, we will take certain assumptions. What are the assumptions? These are the general assumptions for all of our problems. The assumptions are that all the processes are steady state, steady flow. Means there is no change happening with time, and the mass flow rate also remains constant. Okay, so that we can consider that at any point of time the mass flow rate is, means it remains same. It does not change at another time. Okay. And so we can calculate everything per unit mass flow rate. And second thing is that the changes in kinetic energy and potential energy is negligible as compared to the enthalpy changes. So the enthalpy changes due to phase change and heating or work output is much larger. Just a second. The enthalpy changes due to heating or work output is much larger as compared to enthalpy changes due to change in kinetic energy or potential energy. So we can neglect those. Okay. So with this now we can draw the TS diagram, and the TS diagram looks like this. So 1 to 2 we have the compression in the pump. 1 is at 20 kPa pressure. From 2 to 3 is the heat addition occurring in the feed water heater. So the point 3 is given as saturated liquid. So it is on the blue line on the saturation curve. Okay. And at 0.4 MPa pressure, which is also given to us. From 3 to 4 again there is compression. So from 0.4 MPa pressure we bring the fluid to 6 MPa pressure. Okay. And then from 4 to 5, we have heat addition at 6 MPa pressure in the boiler. From 5 to 6 is the expansion in the turbine, and we bring the fluid from 6 MPa to 0.4 MPa. So Y amount of steam is extracted at 0.6 and the rest of the fluid is again expanded in the turbine. So the rest means 1 minus Y amount is expanded in the turbine from 0.4 MPa to 20 kPa. Okay, so this is the entire cycle. So now to solve this problem, we have to find the enthalpy at all the values 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So at all the 7 points, we need to find the enthalpy as well as we need to find the value of Y. Then we will be able to find the net work output and the efficiency of the cycle. Okay. So to do this, we have to use the steam tables as we have discussed previously once. We have to use the steam tables. Okay. Let us increase the size. So you should be very familiar with the steam tables because I have told also that we need to use the steam tables very regularly in this course. For solving all the problems, we will need steam tables. In the exams also, you will need steam tables because steam tables will be supplied to you in the exams. So as part of the question. So it needs, so you need to be very familiar about how to extract data from the steam tables. So let us start the problem step by step. So first let us try to find the value of enthalpy at point 1. Okay, H1. So the H1 value can be easily found based on, so any state is fixed by having two independent parameters, two independent known parameters. For state 1, what are the two known parameters? For state 1, what are the two known parameters?
So the pressure and quality.
Pressure and quality. Good. Pressure is 20 kPa and quality is 0. Means it is fully liquid. So quality is 0. So from the steam tables, we have to find the value of HF. HF, remember, is for the saturated liquid. Hg is for the saturated vapor and HFG is the difference. Okay. So quality 0 means enthalpy is equal to HF because it is for saturated liquid. So our fluid at point 1 is at saturated liquid. And what value we have to find for 20 kPa pressure? So we have to go to 20 kPa pressure. So we have to use the saturation pressure table for steam, okay, instead of temperature table. So you have the table also, you can also open and check alongside me. So we have to go to 20 kPa pressure. So saturation pressure table for steam, okay, same table but in terms of pressure. So let us go to 20 kPa. So this is the 20 kPa pressure line, okay. So our HF value here is 251.31 kilojoule per kg, okay. 251.31 kilojoule per kg. Okay. So H1 is equal to 251.31 kilojoule per kg. H1 is equal to HF at 20 kPa is equal to 251.31 kilojoule per kg. We also need the specific volume. Specific volume of the saturated liquid at the same state is 0.001017 meter cube per kg. Okay. 0.001017 meter cube per kg. So this entire line. So it is V1 is equal to Vf at 20 kP is equal to 0.001017 meter cube per kg. So H1 is known, state 1 is known. Now we have to find state 2, H2. And we have discussed in the previous classes that H2 minus H1 is equal to the work input to the pump, which can be calculated as V1 P2 minus P1. Okay, this is the approximate work input. What is the assumption that we have taken while writing this H2 minus H1 as V1 P2 minus P1? What is the
So
assumption
V1
that
is equal to V2.
V1 is equal to V2? That means specific volume remains constant because it is liquid water. This is a very reasonable approximation or assumption because liquid water specific volume does not change much. Okay, in liquid state. If it was steam, then we would not be able to take the same assumption. So V1 into P2 minus P1, 0.001017 into 400 minus 20 kilojoule per kg. Because we are using kilopascals, our unit is kilojoule per kg. If you are using pascals here, you will get joule per kg. Okay. So H2 minus H1 is 0.3865 kilojoule per kg, or H2 is equal to H1 plus 0.3865 kilojoule per kg. So H1 we already know. So from this you can find H2, which is 251.6965 kilojoule per kg. Okay, 251.6965 kilojoule per kg. So H2 is known. So now we have to find state 3. Again, two parameters are needed for state 3. What are the parameters? Pressure is known, given 400 kilopascal, and quality is also given to us. Quality is 0. It is stated that this point is a saturated liquid. Okay, so 400 kilopascal and 0 quality means HF at 400 kilopascal we have to find. Okay, so for state 3, P3 equal to 0.4 MPa and X3 equal to 0. From saturation table, we have to find H3 is equal to HF at 400 kPa. So if you go to 400 kPa table, this is the 400 kPa line. So HF is this value, okay. 604.37. kilojoule per kg. So H3 is equal to HF at 400 kPa, 604.37 kilojoule per kg. We also need the value V3 because we have to calculate for this 3 to 4 pump process. So V3 is equal to Vf at 400 kPa, and you can again go back to the table. Vf at 400 kPa is 0.001084, okay, meter cube per kg. So we have 0.001084 meter cube per kg. So H4 is equal to H3 plus V3 into P4 minus P3. And you can put the values, plug in the values. P4 is 6 MPa, so which is 6000 kPa, and P3 is 400 kPa. Because we are using kilopascal, our unit will be kilojoule per kg. So H4 is 604.37 plus 6.0704 kilojoule per kg, so which is equal to 610.4404 kilojoule per kg. Okay, this is the value of enthalpy at 0.4. So up to 0.4 we have found 1, 2, 3, 4. Now 0.5. Okay, what are the given conditions for 0.5? We need two independent parameters to fix the state of 0.5. So what is the pressure at 0.5? It is 6 MPa. Okay. What else is given for 0.5? The temperature is given. Okay. Turbine inlet state is 450 degrees centigrade. So 6 MPa and 450 degrees centigrade. This fixes the inlet state 5 to the turbine. Okay. So we have to find the enthalpy at 0.5 based on these two parameters. 450 degrees centigrade and 6 MPa pressure. Okay. So this is at superheated condition. From the diagram, we can see that P5 is 6 MPa and T5 450 degrees centigrade is superheated condition. So we have to go to the superheated table. Okay. We have to go to the superheated table, and you should be comfortable in using the superheated table also. So this is superheated vapor table. What is the pressure that we need to go to? 6 MPa pressure. So this is 0.01, 0.05, 0.1. We have to go to much further down the table. 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, 0.5, 0.6. So we have to go to 6 MPa. Okay, 0.9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 MPa. 6 MPa pressure and 450 degrees centigrade. Okay. So this is the entry corresponding to our state. So the enthalpy is 3302.42 kilojoule per kg. You can see that it is much larger as compared to previous values, which was 200 something and 600 something. Here it is 3302.42 kilojoule per kg. Okay. 3302.42 kilojoule per kg. And what else do we need at 0.5 from the tables? Do we need the specific volume here?
No, sir.
What do we need?
Entropy.
Entropy is needed because we have to equate the entropy at 6 and 7 with that of 5 to find the state 6 and 7. Okay. So S5 also we can find at the same state 450 degree centigrade and 6 MPa pressure. S5 is equal to the entropy given by the table 6.7204 kilojoule per kg Kelvin. Okay. So 6.7204 kilojoule per kg Kelvin. So state 5 we have obtained all the data. Now we have to go to state 6. Okay, so we have done up till now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So only 6 and 7 are left. So for state 6, as you have already said, entropy is needed. So entropy at state 6 is equal to entropy at state 5 because this is an isentropic process. Okay, so S6 is equal to S5, which is equal to 6.7204 kilojoule per kg Kelvin. And another condition is given for state 6, which is the pressure is given. Okay, the pressure at this point is given. It is 0.4 MPa. So we have two conditions known. The pressure 400 kPa and the entropy 6.7204 kilojoule per kg Kelvin. Okay. Now, how do we find the enthalpy at this point? How do we find the enthalpy at this? Yes.
We'll find quality from the.
We will find the quality from the steam table. Okay. We will find the quality. So let us go back to the steam tables. 400 kPa. Pressure is 400 kPa, right? 400 kPa, this line. And SF value is 1.7756 and SFG is 5.1182. Okay, these two are needed. 1.7756 and 5.1182. Okay, so S6 is equal to SF at 400 kPa plus X6 into SFG at 400 kPa. So 6.7204 is equal to 1.7756 plus X6 into 5.1182. So from this you can calculate the quality. Quality comes out to be 0.9661. 96.61% is vapor steam. Rest 3% is liquid water. Okay. So now because we have found the quality, we can find H6. H6 is equal to HF at 400 kPa plus X6 into HFG at 400 kPa. Again from the table you can find that this is 604.37 and HFG is 2133.31. Okay. 604.37 and 2133.31. Okay. So based on this, we can find that H6 is 2665.405 kilojoule per kg. Same thing can be repeated for state 7. So P7 is given as 20 kPa and S7 is equal to S5 because it's an isentropic process. The S7 is 6.7204 kilojoule per kg Kelvin. And now we have to find the quality again. So S7 is equal to SF at 20 kPa plus X7 into SFG at 20 kPa. Okay. So you have to go to the 20 kPa line. And find SF, which is 0.8313 and SFG 7.077. Okay. So 0.8313 plus X7 into 7.0777. So X7 is equal to 0.8321. Okay. Quality is reduced, 83.21% of vapor steam is there. We can see from the diagram also that quality is reduced. 6 is very near to the saturated line, while 7 is much farther away from the saturated line. So quality will be reduced, and that is what we are getting also from our calculation, that quality is 83.21%. So now we can find H7 again using the quality HF plus X7 into HFG. Okay, so HF is 251.31, we have already calculated 251.31, and HFG is 2358.65. Okay, so 0.8321 into 2358.65. So you get H7 as 2213.858 kilojoule per kg. So all the enthalpy values are now known. Okay, all the enthalpy values are now known from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So the only thing that is left for doing the calculation is calculating the value of y, because without calculating the value of y, we cannot calculate what is the net work output from the turbine, and that is needed to calculate the efficiency. Okay, so we need to calculate the net work output, and for this we need to know the value of y. How do we find the value of y? We have discussed today by doing energy balance of the feed water heater. Okay, we will keep the diagram of the problem open here. This is for the problem. So y into H6. Y into H6. So the energy that is coming to the feed water heater from the turbine is H6, and it is being brought by a fraction of steam equal to y. So y into H6 plus 1 minus y into H2. So liquid water comes at state 2 with the mass flow rate of 1 minus y. Okay. So these two is the heat addition to the feed water heater, and what is the heat that is going away, or energy that is going away from the feed water heater? That is equal to the total mass flow rate, which is equal to y plus 1 minus y, so which is equal to 1, and the energy per unit mass is H3, so 1 into H3. So energy balance gives us y into H6 plus 1 minus y into H2 is equal to H3. Okay, so we know already H6, we have calculated H6, we have calculated what is H2, and we have also calculated what is H3. So if you plug in all the values, you will get y value. For this case, y has come out to be 0.1461, which is a realistic value. Okay, 14%. So we are taking out 14% of steam from here, and rest 85%, 85.39% goes to the condenser. Okay. And why this value is very small? We have just discussed today, few minutes back, that because steam loses the enthalpy as latent heat. So the heat loss per unit mass of steam is much larger as compared to the heat increase per unit mass of water, which is just sensible heating. And we can see here from here also. Okay. So the heat loss by the steam is H6 minus H3. What is H6? It is 2665.4. Okay. So 2665, from there it is coming to H3. H3 is 600. So around 2000 kilojoule per kg of heat is lost by the steam per unit mass, while the increase in temperature, increase in enthalpy due to sensible heating is from H2 to H3. So H2 is 251 and H3 is 600. So around 350 kilojoule per kg. So on one side you have 2000 kilojoule per kg of loss. On the other side you have just 350 kilojoule per kg of increase. As a result, you get this that the amount that is required, amount of steam that is required is much less, because per unit mass the energy decrease is much higher. So y is 0.1461, and then the net specific work output can be easily calculated. So work output from the turbine is H5 minus H6, okay, plus 1 minus y H6 minus H7, because 1 minus y is the mass flow rate of steam through this part. So this is the net turbine work output minus the pump work input. For the pump, first pump, the mass flow rate is 1 minus y, so 1 minus y H2 minus H1. For the second pump, the mass flow rate is 1, so 1 is to H4 minus H3. Okay, so if you put in all the values, you will get that the net work output is 1016.1896 kilojoule per kg. So now we can find the efficiency. Efficiency is net work in output by heat addition in the boiler. Heat addition in the boiler is H5 minus H4. Okay, so if you put in these values, we will get that the efficiency is 37.75%. So this is how you can solve a problem. It is very easy once you know how to draw this TS diagram. Then you just have to proceed step by step and find all the values of enthalpy. Once you find all the values of enthalpy, you can then calculate the value of y and then find the work output and efficiency. Okay. You can compare this value on when you are just practicing. You can try the same problem but without the feed water heater. Okay. So the boiler pressure is 6 MPa and the condenser pressure is 20 kPa, and there is a simple Rankine cycle in between those two pressure lines. Okay, so from 1 to 2 is from 20 kPa to 6 MPa, and then turbine expansion is from 6 MPa to 20 kPa. No feed water heater is present. Okay, simple Rankine cycle, and you can find what will be the efficiency. And you should see that for the simple Rankine cycle, the efficiency should be much lower than the efficiency of the regenerative Rankine cycle. You can try to find it and compare what is the efficiency of the simple Rankine cycle as compared to this regenerative Rankine cycle. Any questions?
Yes, sir, here can the 0.6 lie in the superheated region, like not inside the.
Good question. It can lie. So we will see that when in next classes we will see that there will be multiple feed water heaters. Okay. So the feed water heaters which are lower means the lines, there will be multiple parallel lines. So the feed water heaters which are at low pressure will lie in the two-phase region, but for the higher pressure feed water heater, the point will be in the superheated region. Okay. They can lie in the superheated region also. So in that case, the superheated steam comes into the feed water heater. Okay, and how will you find the 0.6 in that case if it is in the superheated condition? Because there you don't have the definition of quality. So what will you do?
So maybe we can use the entropy and pressure, maybe.
Yes, so we have to use the entropy and pressure and interpolate using the steam tables to find the temperature at that point. Okay, because temperature will be the unknown there. Pressure will be known, but temperature will be unknown. So we can find the temperature from the steam table, and then we can solve the problem in a similar fashion. Okay. Once you find the temperature, you can find the enthalpy again using interpolation. Okay. You can try that. You can take for the same problem, take the feed water heater pressure as say 2 MPa pressure. Okay, and try the same problem. Then for 2 MPa pressure, let me just check once. Or 1 MPa pressure, let me just check 1 MPa pressure. So this is 1 MPa pressure. Entropy is 6.58. 6.58, and so we can compare to find whether it will be in the two-phase region or not. Oh, I have closed it. So we can go to 6.58, and our entropy was equal to 6.72. So we have found that the entropy at 0.5 is 6.72. Okay, entropy at 0.5 is 6.72. So if the pressure is 1 MPa, from the steam tables we can see that for 1 MPa, the saturation vapor entropy itself is 6.58, okay, less than 6.72. So it means that our point is outside the two-phase region if the pressure is 1 MPa. Okay, so then we have to go to this superheated table for 1 MPa pressure. Okay, superheated table for 1 MPa pressure, and we don't know what is the temperature, right? But we know the entropy. We don't know the temperature, but we know the entropy. I will increase the size. So our entropy is 6.72 or something like that was there, 6.72. Okay. So 6.72. So we can see that 6.6931 corresponds to temperature 200 and 6.9252 corresponds to temperature 250. So 6.72 is between these 2 points. Okay. So you have to interpolate between these 2 points to find what should be the temperature. It will be between 200 and 250 degrees centigrade. Once you find the temperature of entry of the superheater, you can find out the enthalpy also. Directly also you can find the enthalpy, but the temperature may be required for other calculation. Directly by interpolating also you can find the enthalpy based on the entropy value. Is it clear to everyone what I am trying to say? Try to solve the same problem, but with feed water heater pressure as 1 MPa. Okay. Try it after the class or before the next class. Feed water heater pressure is 1 MPa instead of 400 kPa. Try to solve the same problem and see what is the efficiency. And another option is try to solve the same problem without any feed water, like simple Rankine cycle, and see what is the efficiency. Good question. Any other question? Otherwise, let us move on to the next part. Okay, we'll start the next part of the course. Means next part means only this one only, continuation of regeneration cycle. Okay. So we have seen that what is a regenerative Rankine cycle, okay, in its basic form with one feed water heater. Now the question arises, what should be the feed water heater pressure? Okay, so because I have said that you can try with 0.4 MPa or 1 MPa and see what is the efficiency. So how will we determine what should be a suitable pressure? Whether it will be 0.4 MPa or whether it will be 1 MPa or 600 kPa or 800 kPa? What is going to be a suitable pressure? Or at least some guideline. It may not be the exact most suitable pressure, but at least some guideline is needed that what should be the approximate pressure which is suitable for our regenerative cycle, okay, for the feed water. So there is a way to find this. So we can find the optimum degree of regeneration. So by optimum degree of regeneration, we mean that we can find an optimum pressure by taking lot of assumptions. Okay, some of the assumptions are very abrupt assumptions, but we can take a lot of assumptions and then find the optimum pressure for which the efficiency is highest. Okay, so we will try to find the pressure for which the efficiency of the cycle is highest, and that pressure we will call as optimum pressure of the feed water heater. So we will have the feed water, we can have the feed water heater at that pressure. Okay, so let us try to find the optimum pressure of the feed water heater. So this is slightly tricky, this finding the optimum pressure. So you feel free to ask questions here. Okay, this is slightly tricky, and I will keep this diagram also open. We'll keep this diagram open here. We will need to refer to it multiple times. Okay. So again, we have a regenerative Rankine cycle going from 1 to 2, 2 to 3. So same, all the same terms are similar. Okay. I have also put two more notations. One is 4 dash for the start of the or at the saturated point in the boiler, saturated liquid point, and 4 double dash is for the saturated vapor point in the boiler. Okay. The entire boiling process is from 4 to 5. So our problem can be stated as to find the optimum position of 0.3. Okay, depending on different feed water heater pressure, the 0.3 location will change. It can be lower or higher. We need to find the optimum position of 0.3. Okay, optimum in which sense? Optimum such that the efficiency is maximum. Okay, so we have to find the position of 0.3 between 2 and 4 dash so that the efficiency is maximum. Okay, so we will start with certain assumptions. So first assumption is very reasonable, that pump work is negligible. So H2 is equal to H1 and H4 is equal to H3. Okay, pump work is negligible. We know that this is a very reasonable assumption because we have seen that the work input to the pump is much less as compared to the work output from the turbine, less than 1%. Okay, even if you see the previous problem also that we have tried, you will see that work output was quite large from the turbine. Total work output was 1000 kilojoule per kg, but the pump work input was very less. So in one case it was 6 kilojoule per kg, in another case it was even less than 1 kilojoule per kg. Okay, so much less than 1% of turbine work. So it's a reasonable assumption that pump work is negligible. So it means that H2 point or 2 and 1 points are coinciding. Okay, or H2 is equal to H1. Similarly, 4 and 3 points also coincide. Okay, so H4 is almost equal to H3. So now we will do an energy balance in the feed water heater. Okay, so Y into H6 minus H3 is equal to 1 minus y H3 minus H2. We have already done this multiple times, so we know that how to do that. Y into H6 minus H3 is equal to 1 minus y H2 minus H2. So the energy lost by the steam is equal to the energy gained by the condenser water which is coming from the condenser. Okay. So rearranging the terms, you can write this as, you just take the H3 minus H2 into y to the left side, and you will be left with y into H6 minus H2 is equal to H3 minus H2, or y is equal to H3 minus H2 by H6 minus H2. Okay. This is the value of y. Till now we have not taken any assumption. So now we can take the assumption that pump work is negligible. So H2 is equal to H1. So we can replace this with y is equal to H3 minus H1 by H6 minus H1. Okay. So this is the expression for y. Refer to this diagram. Okay, this diagram I cannot show, but we can always refer to this diagram. So then what is the efficiency? Efficiency can be written as 1 minus heat rejection in the condenser by heat addition in the boiler. Okay, 1 minus heat rejection in the condenser by heat addition in the boiler. Before that, I will ask you one question. Okay, why does an optimum point exist? Why does an optimum point of efficiency exist? Or in other ways, what are the things that are changing that is causing? So something needs to change so that there is increase in efficiency, and something needs to change again so that there is decrease in efficiency. So that somewhere in between we have an optimum point. Okay. So what is causing the increase in efficiency and what is causing the decrease in efficiency? So that by counterbalancing these two, we find an optimum point. Okay. So if I change the point 3 to a lower value or a higher value, what will be the positive effect and what will be the negative effect on the efficiency? Say point 3 is higher as compared to this point 3. Our point 3 is higher. Feed water heater pressure is high. So does it mean that efficiency will be higher?
Sir, not necessarily.
Not necessarily. Why? Not necessarily is correct answer, but why?
So because that may cause less power production from the turbine.
Correct.
It
Good.
will,
Yes. So although the heat addition in the boiler will be reduced, which is the positive effect, okay, the power output from the turbine is also getting reduced. So you are taking steam from here. So this from this point to the entire like condenser pressure, the entire part of the turbine works with less working fluid, 1 minus y. So the power production from the turbine is reduced. Okay. So these are the two opposite things that are happening. If you make the feed water heater pressure high, your heat addition in the boiler is reduced, which has a positive effect on the efficiency. But the turbine work output is reduced, which has a negative effect on the efficiency. So there may or may not be some optimum point based on these two factors. Okay. So that's why the location of this point 3 is very important. Good answer. Is it clear to everyone?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, good. So 1 minus QL by QH. So what is QL? QL is the heat rejection in the condenser. This is equal to 1 minus Y into H7 minus H1. Okay, 1 minus Y into H7 minus H1. Because 1 minus Y is the mass flow rate through the condenser. And what is the heat addition in the boiler? It is H5 minus H4. So divided by H5 minus H4. So now we can replace the expression of Y with this H3 minus H1 by H6 minus H1. Okay, in this expression. So this is equal to 1 minus H7 minus H1 into 1 minus H3 minus H1 by H6 minus H1. Just I am replacing the Y with this expression. Okay, divided by H5 minus H3. So after rearranging the terms, you will get efficiency is equal to 1 minus H7 minus H1 into, so this H6 minus H1 minus H3 plus H1. So H1 gets cancelled. So you are left with H6 minus H3. Okay, divided by H5 minus H3 by H6 minus H1. So in terms of enthalpy, I can, for the regenerative cycle, I can also write approximately the efficiency is this. Approximately why? Because we have neglected the pump work. Okay. Now we are going to take another assumption, which is a bold assumption. Okay, it is based on empirical relation and empirical evidence. So before that, let us define some parameters. Okay, just so that the calculation is easy. So let us call gamma as H3 minus H1. So the heat addition or enthalpy rise in the feed water heater. Okay, we are neglecting the point 2. We are assuming that point 2 is equal to 0.1. So as a result, the heat addition in the feed water heater is from 1 to 3. Okay, so H3 minus H1 is enthalpy rise in the feed water heater. Let us call this term as gamma. Okay, this term is variable because if the 0.3 changes, the value of gamma will change. Okay, it can go higher or it can go lower. So if it goes 0.3 goes lower, gamma will be low. 0.3 goes higher, gamma will be high. Total enthalpy rise in the feed water of the feed water. Okay, not the feed water heater, of the feed water, means up to the point it enters the vaporization phase. Okay, so that total enthalpy rise is from 1 to 4 dash. So H4 dash minus H1 is the total enthalpy rise of the feed water. So entire enthalpy rise that is occurring in the liquid state. Okay, so this term is fixed because the boiler pressure and condenser pressure will be fixed. H1 and H4 dash will be fixed. Okay, so this let us call this as alpha. So alpha is fixed, but gamma is a variable. Okay, so gamma can vary from 0 to maximum value of alpha. 0 is when 0.3 coincides with 0.1 and maximum value is alpha when 0.3 coincides with 0.4 dash. Okay, so gamma is between 0 and alpha is fixed. Okay. Now we will take a very crude assumption. Okay, there is not a very strong basis for this assumption, but this is just based on empirical evidence, and it induces some inaccuracy, but still it is the only way to calculate the approximate optimized pressure. Okay, so it gives us a clue about the optimum pressure. So what is the assumption? Assumption is that for any of this heating part, okay, whether it is in the feed water heater or in the means the heat exchange that is occurring in the two-phase region or like from the boiler to, say, from 4 dash to 5, H5 minus H4 dash is approximately equal to H6 minus H3, or that is also approximately equal to H7 minus H1. Okay, this is seen from tables that this is means somewhat correct, means there is some differences, but still it holds true. Okay, H5 minus H4 dash is almost equal to H6 minus H3 is almost equal to H7 minus H1. Okay, so all these terms we will call as beta. Okay, this is not a very strong assumption, but this is the only way to solve the problem. Okay, otherwise it cannot be solved analytically because you will have different data and you cannot solve it. So this assumption is needed, but with this assumption we will be able to find a good solution for the optimum pressure for the feed water. Okay. So again I will repeat the assumption: H5 minus H4 dash is equal to H6 minus H3 is equal to H7 minus H1. Okay, so the enthalpy changes are equal for each of these processes approximately. Let us call that as beta, this term as beta. Okay. So now the problem can be stated in this way. Okay, for a given alpha and also for a given beta, for a given alpha, find the value of gamma so that efficiency is maximum. Okay, alpha we know is fixed, gamma can vary from 0 to value of alpha. So for a given alpha we have to find the value of gamma so that efficiency is maximum. Okay, so to do that, let us first write the efficiency in terms of alpha, beta and gamma. Okay, so eta is 1 minus H7 minus H1. H7 minus H1 is what? As per our assumption, H7 minus H1 is beta. So 1 minus beta, H6 into H6 minus H3, that is also beta. So 1 minus beta square. divided by H5 minus H3. So what is H5 minus H3? H5 minus H3 is equal to H5 minus H1 minus H3 minus H1. Okay, I will repeat again. H5 minus H3 is the entire distance H5 minus H1 minus H3 minus H1. Okay, what is H5 minus H1? H5 minus H1 is H5 minus H4 dash, which is equal to beta. Okay, plus from 4 dash to 1, which is alpha. So beta plus alpha minus this 1 to 3 process. Okay, gamma. Okay, so beta plus alpha minus gamma. So H5 minus H4, H3, sorry, H5 minus H3 is equal to beta plus alpha minus gamma. We have another term H6 minus H1. H6 minus H1 is H6 minus H3 plus H3 minus H1. So beta plus gamma. Okay, gamma is from H3 minus H1 and beta is H6 minus H3. So beta plus gamma. So efficiency can be written as 1 minus beta square by beta plus alpha minus gamma into beta plus gamma. Okay. So now we have to find the optimum value of gamma, assuming that beta and alpha are constant, so that efficiency is maximum. Okay. Now it's become a simple problem. So we can take a derivative of the efficiency eta with respect to gamma and equate it to 0 to find the maximum value of eta. Okay. Either there will be a maximum or minimum value. We have to later establish that that is the maximum value. Okay. But we can take a derivative and we can equate it to 0. Okay. So this is same as, because beta is constant, this is same as taking derivative of the denominator and equating it to 0. So derivative of beta plus alpha minus gamma into beta plus gamma equal to 0. Okay, because all the other terms are constant. So if you take a derivative of that with respect to gamma, you get, so from the second term, so if you keep the first term fixed, you get from the second term derivative is 1. Okay, so beta plus alpha minus gamma into 1. And then for the first term you get, so beta plus gamma is kept and the derivative of this first term is minus 1. So minus into beta plus gamma equal to 0. So gamma is equal to 2 gamma is equal to alpha, or gamma is equal to alpha by 2. Okay. So this is the optimum value of gamma. So it is equal to alpha by 2, or in terms of enthalpy if we write, okay, gamma was H3 minus H1. Okay, so H3 minus H1 is half of H4 dash minus H1. In other words, 3 is in between. So 3 is at the center of between 1 and 4 dash. Okay, so H3 minus H1 is half of H4 dash minus H1, also means that H3 minus H1 is equal to H4 dash minus H3. Okay, so H3 minus H1 is H4 dash minus H1 by 2, which is also equal to H4 dash minus H3. So half of the energy increase of the feed water should occur in the feed water heater, and rest of the energy increase should occur in the boiler to get the optimum efficiency, highest efficiency. Okay, this is what we get from our calculation. Now what is the optimum boiler pressure? So based on this we can write this as Cp T3 minus T1 is equal to Cp T4 dash minus T3. Okay, or T3 is equal to T1 plus T4 dash by 2. So temperature for point 3 is approximately equal to temperature of point T4 dash, which is a known temperature because it is the saturation temperature for the boiler pressure, plus T1, saturation temperature for condenser pressure. So saturation temperature for boiler pressure plus saturation temperature for condenser pressure divided by 2. Okay, so exactly in between these 2 points, corresponding temperature we are going to call as the optimum temperature of feed water heater. So the optimum pressure is the pressure equal to the saturation pressure corresponding to T3. Okay, so the optimum pressure of the feed water heater is the pressure corresponding to the temperature T3. Okay, saturation pressure. So if we find that the temperature here is 210 degrees centigrade, we have to go to the table and find out what is the saturation pressure for 210 degrees centigrade, and that is the feed water heater pressure. Is it clear to everyone? Please go through the material again. Okay. So for the optimum configuration, we can write the efficiency. Let me go to the efficiency equation. 1 minus beta square plus beta plus alpha minus gamma into beta plus gamma. Okay. So because gamma is alpha by 2, you can replace gamma by alpha by 2. Okay. So we are left with eta is equal to 1 minus beta square divided by beta plus alpha by 2 into beta plus alpha by 2. So 1 minus beta square by beta plus alpha by 2 whole square, or we can write this as 1 minus 1 by 1 plus alpha by 2 beta whole square. Okay. This is the efficiency for the optimum configuration, means for the maximum efficiency. Without regeneration also we can find the efficiency. Without regeneration, what is the efficiency? So without regeneration, efficiency is eta 0 can be written as 1 minus H7 minus H1 divided by H5 minus H1. Okay, because heat rejection in the condenser is H7 minus H1 and heat addition in the boiler is H5 minus H1. Okay, so 1 minus H7 minus H1 divided by H5 minus H1. H7 minus H1 is beta and H5 minus H1 is beta. So H5 to H4 dash is beta and H4 dash to H1 is alpha. So beta plus alpha. Okay, 1 minus beta by alpha plus beta. Or in other words, this is equal to 1 minus 1 by 1 plus alpha by beta. Okay. So now we can subtract the regeneration, optimum regeneration efficiency or the normal efficiency without regeneration from the optimum regeneration efficiency to check whether our efficiency is higher for regeneration. The optimum efficiency that we have obtained, whether it is higher or not, that we need to check. Okay. So eta minus eta 0, if it is positive, it means that the optimum efficiency is higher as compared to without regeneration. It means that we are getting a higher efficiency. So the optimum point is the for the maximum efficiency. Okay. So eta minus eta 0, you can just replace this with this expression. So eta is equal to 1 minus 1 by alpha plus 2 beta whole square minus eta 0 minus 1 plus 1 by alpha 1 by 1 plus alpha by beta. Okay. Just do the calculation on your own, because here it is just I am showing the calculation. Better to do it on your own so that you get a feel for the calculation. But from this too, we can do some algebraic calculation. It's just a one-step calculation, and you will find that eta minus eta 0 is alpha square by 4 beta square divided by 1 plus alpha by beta plus 1 plus alpha by 2 beta whole square. Okay. All the terms here are positive. Alpha square by 4 beta square are positive, and all the denominators are also positive because alpha and beta are positive. So this is greater than 0. It means that eta is greater than eta 0. It means that regeneration increases the efficiency of the cycle. Okay, and we know that the optimum point is for the maximum efficiency, because if it was not for the maximum efficiency, if it was for the minimum efficiency, then other configuration would have given more efficiency. So if the feed water pressure would have been equal to the condenser pressure, it means that there is no feed water heater. So that efficiency would have been higher. But because we find that that efficiency is lower, we can say that the optimum efficiency, or at the optimum point, the efficiency is the highest efficiency. Okay, we will stop here and continue this discussion in the next class. Please go through the material, and if you are not clear about anything, ask me in the next class. I have uploaded this in the portal. Any questions on today's class? So please don't leave yet.